Hello Government B students, this is Mrs. Miller and this is your Unit 3 test review. I'm hoping that you guys will find these little reviews helpful and help you rock your test. Between this and the study guides, that you will be confident and do very well. So first, one thing I want to discuss is judicial review. This unit is mainly about the judicial branch, so there are a couple other things we'll dip into, but we're mainly covering this, and there are a couple highlights that you'll need for your test. Um, Jurisdiction directly limits which courts may hear and decide a case. And you guys had some questions about original jurisdiction in this unit, so that shouldn't be a term that is hard for you guys to understand. The power of judicial review is held by most federal and state courts. So that's something that you'll need to remember. And then courts of appeals are sometimes called the gatekeepers, and that they have the power to let cases go through the quote unquote gate. I'm doing air quotes, but you can't see them, to the Supreme Court. And they only allow the most controversial and significant cases past that gate to the Supreme Court. Um, and it's not always about controversy, but it is definitely about significance. Has a lot to do with things like civil rights, um, women's health, voting rights. All of those things come down to the Supreme Court usually, because it um, has to be a ruling that is important. That's gonna it, oh, I'm not phrasing this well, but the rulings affect a lot of people and will create change throughout the country usually, if they alter what people already believe. The Supreme Court is referred to as the High Court because it is the last court in which federal questions can be decided. So it really is the end all be all. The Chief Justice Charles Evan Hughes once said that the Constitution means what the judges say it means. And this is in reference to the Supreme Court's power of judicial review. And that's an important one because the Constitution is always going to be interpreted differently by every new generation. So things have changed since it was first written, and so there will need to be some interpretation as society changes. We don't live in 1787 anymore. Appointment of federal judges. So judges are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. So, I mean, appointed is kind of, you normally think of appointing as being like, this is your job now, hooray, there you go. But in this regard, it's an appointment, but it really is more of a nomination because the president gives this name up to the Senate, and the Senate has to confirm this person to be a federal judge. The judges that the president appoints serve as a living legacy of his or her presidency. And I'm putting her because I'm hoping one day we will have a female president. And I'm not necessarily advocating Hillary. I'm simply saying one day. I have 3 daughters. I hope one of them gets to be president. Because they're all brilliant. But of course, I'm biased. So, lifetime appointment to protect them from being dismissed if they make an unpopular ruling. And this is important because, say, the people who make these justices, if they think that their job's in jeopardy, they may not rule the way that they think needs to be ruled. If they're an elected official, they're going to do what people can bribe them to do, or they're going to do what people may say is the more popular choice, even though it doesn't line up with the Constitution. So this lifetime appointment really protects them from having that fear of losing their job and just doing what they believe is right. It also insulates them from politics. They don't have to be in a party. They don't have to run for election. They just do what they think is right, and they have their job until they decide to not have it anymore, or they die. The Warren Supreme Court was an important Supreme Court, and they referred to as it's referred to as the Warren Supreme Court because the Chief Justice was Warren. This court made precedent overturning decisions on some very important issues, and some of these include segregation and civil rights, free speech and voting procedures, and the criminal procedure and right to privacy. So these are all really important things that came about during the tenure of Chief Justice Warren. Some important acts that you'll want to know for your test. The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 um, granted amnesty for about 3 million illegal immigrants already in the United States. And then the Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlaws discrimination in public accommodations and hiring practices. And that one was very important because in the 60s, there was a lot of segregation and a lot of just legal racism. So this really helped put an end to that. It was part of the legal process to put an end to that. There's still, of course, racism every day that we see, but every little bit of progress is good, and the Civil Rights Act of 64 was a huge step forward. And this is something that is these are a list of things that are guaranteed to one that is in the court system. And by that I mean someone who is being tried, or is a suspect of something. So the writ of habeas corpus, and this is intended to prevent the accused from being unjustly arrested and imprisoned without a cause. So this is something that we need to know. And people, if they are arrested, there needs to be an appropriate. My brain just went blank. An appropriate like name for what they're being accused of. They need to have this a charge listed, and there needs to be an appropriate cause. The guarantee against double jeopardy protects a person from being tried twice for the same crime. And there are going to be a few stipulations to that one. If there are changes in the case, someone might, or if it's a mistrial, they might be tried again. There are little hiccups to that one, but in general, what it means is that if someone has already been tried for a crime and been my brain keeps going blank. If someone has been tried for a crime and been found not guilty, it's very, very unlikely they're going to be tried again, unless something massive comes up and they're able to kind of change the charge. Every accused person is presumed innocent until proven guilty, and that is something that is very important for our justice system, is that the person that is on trial is supposed to be presumed innocent until they are proven guilty. So even when they're on trial, so much of the time we see things on the news and we assume that because they're on trial, well, obviously they're guilty. But that our justice system is based on the idea that we are not guilty until we are proven guilty. And if police do not follow the letter of the law, their conduct may result in a guilty person going free. So if police do anything or don't follow proper protocol or do anything like shady or don't follow proper protocol, someone who is actually guilty could get off free and go free because of the fact that people have to follow procedure in order to make sure that everything is done properly. And that's to protect innocent people as well. And we have found that that society is best protected when the rights of the accused are protected. And that is because of the fact that sometimes it might look like someone did something, but in fact they are innocent and just very unlucky in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the rights of the accused need to be protected because of that. The 14th Amendment states that due process, the 14th Amendment contains the due process clause that states nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And that is one that due process is the proper judicial procedures, and then also that every person is allowed to have those protections of the laws. So that is also regarding to equality. Guarantees to every citizen, and this is just a few guarantees among many, but these are definitely some things that are show up on your test. So that's why I highlight these few. Sorry, my phone was ringing. I had to silence it. An American citizen may do as he or she pleases within the U.S. as long as that person's actions do not infringe. Ooh, I have this typing error. Do not infringe on the rights of others. There we go. So that's important. That you have to, you have the right to do what you want as long as it's not infringing on the rights of others. And that kind of comes into play in lots of things in life. No American citizen can be denied equal protection of the laws within the U.S., meaning that every United States citizen is equal and has equal to the same rights and laws. Americans may use assembly as a means to seek to influence public policy, and Americans have freedom of religion, and the government has encouraged that, but has not and cannot allow the establishment of a national religion because doing so would be against the First Amendment. Some important cases that have come up. It's Lemon versus Kurtzman led to the creation of a test over whether religion in schools violates the Establishment Clause. Marbury versus Madison established the Supreme Court's power of judicial review over Congress. And Plessy versus Ferguson led to 60 years of continued legalized segregation, and that Plessy versus Ferguson led to the separate but equal doctrine. So that's a really important one to know because it will come up in all sorts of ways in your classes here, your classes in the future. But Plessy versus Ferguson was the one that led to legalized segregation, and that separate versus equal doctrine. Remember that. And then the Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka. That one reversed the Plessy versus Ferguson decision, and it ended that separate but equal doctrine. So that was really important. The Brown versus Board of Education ended the separate but equal doctrine, and it said that segregation in schools was unconstitutional. So segregation in schools, unconstitutional. Brown versus Board of Education. Remember those things. All right. So the essay questions for your test. In an essay of 100 or more words, describe how the federal government versus state governments protected and strengthened civil rights of African Americans in the South during Reconstruction, and then again during the civil rights movements. You may even want to talk about the fact that it's necessary that the federal government take on these things because state governments still had so many people who were entrenched in that system. The federal government was separated from a lot of that segregation, and the state governments, especially in the South, had so many people who were raised to be racist. So it was important for the federal government to take on that role. And then in an essay of 150 words or more, describe the structure of the federal court system. And you must identify which courts have original jurisdiction and how the appeals process works going from the original courts to the Supreme Court. And if you wanted to be really, overachievery, you could even, hunt down one case and follow it and show how it went from one to the next. But there you go. Those are pretty much the highlights of your test. Take this information and kick that test's butt. And do your best. I look forward to reading your answers, and that's pretty much it. Remember, if you're using this as your live class option, to call me after you watch it, and we can discuss it, make sure everything's nice and clear. And, oh, my brain just totally blanked. And remember that I'm here to help you. Sorry, I've made 2 of these today, and the last one was really, really long, so I keep blanking on what I'm trying to say. So I'm here to help you guys. If you have questions, remember that's what I'm here for. That's my job. That's what I want to do. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask for help. Have a great day, and I look forward to reading your work.